Hi, how you doing and welcome back to another video on the channel. What we have for you today is our free hit team going into game week 37. If you've saved your free hit chip to this point, then fair play to you. If you're looking for the best team, as this title says, this one is 100% rated, so you'll do well to find a better team out there. Let's take a look at the players we're going to talk about today. So as we get the team on the board, we're going to start with the goalkeepers. And if you've been watching my videos all season, you'll know that I've had Onana in my team every game week so far this season. And whilst Man United are inconsistent defensively, not really any teams are keeping clean sheets. And Onana is actually ranked second on all keepers for the amount of saves he's made this season. There is only Kaminsky from Luton who has made more. And there's no way you're getting in a Luton goalkeeper this game week. Man United do also have two home fixtures, so I think if you were going to pick any keeper out there for a double game week, I think one with two home games is a really good shout, whether that's Man United goalkeeper or not. I think he's a good option, and he can also get a lot of save points, and if he does keep a clean sheet, you're looking at double digits. So for me, I've also just put Matt Turner on the bench. He's not going to play, but there's no way Onana's not playing in at least one of these games. You would think he plays in both. So there's not really any need to tie up any transfer funds on my bench with my goalkeepers. Speaking of transfer funds, we've gone pretty cheap in defence with Dan Burn and Cucurella especially. Dan Burn coming in at 4.6 million. I think he's someone who is still an aerial threat from corners. Even with Newcastle's injury list at the moment, especially defensively, there is still a chance of keeping clean sheets there. But he's in there really for his, set-piece threat. Same with Cucurella, really. Like Chelsea, whilst have been inconsistent all season, Cucurella is someone who has been climbing up those expected assist rankings. I think there's double fixture there, as well as playing 90 minutes, I think, in each of his last 5 games. Really does bode well. And at the prices that both those defenders are at, it does leave you with a lot of transfer funds to spend elsewhere. I've gone with Guardiola as my third starting defender. Like Man City here are not going to rotate that much. I know I've said it there with Man City, but at this stage of the season, consistency is key. And if you've got a formula and a starting lineup that works, you're not going to want to change it unless there's a reason to do so. So I think Guardiola does continue to start, and he has been getting a lot of attacking returns himself in recent game weeks. Having a 3-back does leave Pedro Porro on the bench, and he is my most expensive defender by quite a bit. I'm not too fussed about that. I don't see him getting a lot of returns this game week. I think if they do happen, it would be in that first game against Burnley. But for me, I think if you were struggling for transfer funds, I wouldn't have a problem with just getting a cheap defender on my bench instead of him. You do have to make sure that defender plays, though, because if one of your starting defenders doesn't play and you've got 2 cheap defenders on the bench, doesn't matter who your first sub is, one of those defenders will be coming on for your lineup. So do make sure that they play at least one of the games in your team. But it is probably the option I would use to save money on this team. So the midfield is looking pretty stacked, if I do say so myself. I don't really see a better option out there than the 5 players we've got, and it has led to Phil Foden being on the bench. Now, whilst we talk about Man City being consistent for minutes at the moment, I do think that all the 4 starting players will play more minutes than Foden this game week. Now, what they do with those minutes is up to opinion, but I think they will lead to attacking returns. If you were going to swap someone out of the starting lineup, for me, it would be Anthony Gordon. Let me know what you think about the players in midfield especially, and what would be your player that you would bench out of those 5. I think for me, Bruno Fernandes, I don't see Man United not getting a penalty in these 2 home games. I think the teams that they're playing, whilst are quite good, there's going to be some tasty tackles going in there. And Bruno Fernandes will score this game week. I just have a feeling of it. So if you have him in your team, I think he's a great option. Cole Palmer and Son are an absolute must. Even if their teams are being inconsistent at the moment, or especially Spurs, they still are finding returns every game week, whether that's 1 goal, 1 assist, or even more. They do seem to be scoring. And Anthony Gordon at home against Brighton could really haul. Up front, I've gone with the set and forget 3 strikers here. I don't really see a better option up front than these 3. A lot of people will have been burnt by Erling Haaland this game week. Either you've not got him in, or you captain someone else trying to climb the ranks. I could absolutely see him getting 4 or 5 goals in these 2 games here. I know they're both away, but both teams are not playing great defensively at the moment, and Man City are just a machine as well in recent game weeks. Haaland is going to get minutes. I don't really see the fact that he's had a bit of an injury hit season. There's not really much need to rest him now he's fit, and I think he will probably be getting 90 minutes under his belt as they get closer and closer to the FA Cup final, just to try and get him that consistent form. Having said that, it's Man City, and who knows. But for me, Nicholas Jackson is a really good option as well. Despite being quite wasteful for Chelsea this season, he is getting enough chances to still find the back of the net and get attacking returns. And Alexander Isak is someone who is on good form as well. And until Haaland got 4 goals, was actually in the running for the Golden Boot. So you never know how it's going to go. If Isak gets a couple of goals against Brighton, he could really be one of those players to watch for the last 2 games of the season. So for me, as we said, 100% rated, absolutely brilliant. If you can find a team better than this, then fair play to you. But the value is 101.8 million. Now, a lot of teams should be able to afford this at this stage of the season. If you're playing your free hit now, I guess you could have forgotten about it all season, but you're probably an engaged manager, in which case your team value is probably around that mark. If you did want to save money, we talked about reducing Pedro Porro to a cheap defender, maybe someone who's just got 1 game this game week, and you could bring that round about 100 million overall. So the strengths for this team, there's lots of double game week players. In fact, they're pretty all much double game week players. I think not only are they double game week players, they're players who are going to play, the players who are returning at the moment. And as we said a couple of times now, it is 100% rated, which does mean that the data backs it up. And whilst the game's not played on paper, it is good to know that you've got that solid foundation of, being backed up by the figures. There's lots of variables that can happen in football that we absolutely can't take into account in the moment, but I think it's a good starting point. So the weaknesses of this team for me is that there's no differentials, and what I mean by that is it depends where you are in your leagues and overall and what your aim is for this season. If you're in the top 100k, there are no differentials in this team, and you're going to find it really hard to climb the ranks. I think the way you would do that is you would probably captain someone other than Haaland and just go for it and hope that Haaland doesn't score as well as your captain. Maybe someone like Cole Palmer would be a good option there. I think if you're outside the top 100k, then it probably are a few differentials. If you're 500k or a million or something like that, you're going to be getting a lot of extra points from someone like Jackson, maybe even Isak. Players like Vardiol, who a lot of managers maybe haven't gotten in yet. Maybe they've used the free hit, or they've not necessarily can afford it. I think there's some good options there as well. And there are bench headaches. So whilst we've got a good team here, having a good team does mean that you sometimes have to take some risks and bench players that maybe do end up scoring a lot of points. That's part of the fun, and you do have to make some tough decisions along the way. So let me know what you think about this team. Are there any players that I'm missing out on? Would you improve it by any way? Do you have any players that you think could come in and surprise everyone this game week? Thank you very much for listening. Good luck if you are free hitting, and I will see you in the next one.